Welcome back, everyone. This is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, and you are looking at a motor that is about to be reassembled. Now, when we last were here talking about this motor that I had mentioned to you it was making a fairly noisy groaning sound. And after inspecting the motor, I had it all apart when you first started seeing it. It was all laid out. And I haven't put it back together yet. The only thing I have done is once I got the armature back in, and I showed this in the last video, I basically took this clamp, this half, this is the side where the belt pulley will attach, and I basically just lined, I got it I threaded the drive shaft through it, and it's sitting here, and it's waiting to be joined with the other half. But if you get to this point, hopefully you will, if you are trying to reassemble, and you can do all of this in the reverse for disassembling, you have to kind of do an inventory. Make sure you have everything that you need. Now, what do we see here? One of the things you'll see is there are two of these. These are the wedge-shaped caps that cover the area to access your motor brushes. And these B motors have two. There's one that goes here. They both go on this side. If the left side of the motor is the side that does not have your belt pulley. Okay, so there's one up top, and then there's one that goes inverse underneath on the bottom. Now you'll notice there's this nice piece of brass. For those of you who've never seen on the inside, it's like, well, you may have taken the cap off. Of course, there's a bolt, right? There's a bolt there, and you may have taken this off, and what you might not have noticed is that very often this incredible piece of threaded brass is actually, it will often be sitting here like that. Okay, so you may actually see it. It looks like that, and it may not come out. Now the reason that is there is because that is very important. If you lose this, you're never going to get your motors to stay together. Why? Because when it is attached, you've got it's fairly short bolt that's that is attached, or not attached, that you use to hold your wedge brush cap on. But this piece is very important because when this motor finally gets put back together, we have two long bolts. You see them right here. Okay, these long bolts. This bolt is going to go on this end, and then when your cap is in place, that bolt connects to this beautiful brass piece, and that is what helps hold your motor together. Well, okay, no big deal. But we're not done. We need to take more inventory. What else do we need? We got to make sure we have both of our motor brushes. These are the ones that were in there. They're great. They were not dirty. They were not oily, and they have lots of life left. And we have a brush holder, which looks like a sort of little brass conduit piece, and it looks like it. Oh, by the way, one thing to note, when you look at this piece, look at the top. There's a piece, it looks like it has a slight overhang on the left side. And that's something to note, because we're going to need to remember that when we go to install the brushes. Now, these brushes are attached to springs, okay? And the springs, this holder is not actually going to hold on to the brush. If I let it go, the brush falls out. That's something to remember, because brushes, especially when they've got their springs, they take on a life of their own. We'll just put it that way. All right. So what else is left? We've got these two bolts that are not quite as long as the other two, and these bolts are actually going to hold the section below the motor, which is a sort of a rectangular sort of a platform box, for lack of a better word, and we're going to be using these, and they're going to hold the sections of this together. Okay, this will be the last thing that we use to finish our motor. Now, I want to share something with you that some of you may have seen before, or maybe you didn't know. There is a piece that goes with this motor, and I learned this because when I did my first motor disassembly, it was not on this motor, it was on a a class of Singer motor, it starts with the letter P like Paul, and they have different versions of it with different suffixes. And that motor, I took it apart and I was so excited, and I got it cleaned and lubricated. I got it all back together and everything looked great. But there was something not quite right. You see, when I was done, this was left on the table. Like, what the heck is that? I didn't know what it was. And if you don't know what it is, you all know this from taking anything apart. If you take something apart and you put it back together, you got pieces left over, you got to start over. Something's not right. So I did. And before I did that, on that early motor, that's years ago, I actually went and started searching the service manuals and figured out, I looked at a sort of a blow-up diagram of all the parts in the motor. And wouldn't you know, I saw this. Now, Simanco is the name of Singer's parts division, or was, and they would use lots of part numbers. Now, the part number for this may vary depending on the motor it was used for. To my knowledge, the two types of Singer motors, there would have been, like I say, different versions and upgrades of them, but the B class, B like Bravo, and P class, P like Paul. Now, those are the P class motors, like Paul, those motors are the ones with the worm gear. They're very long. I've shown them in the channel here before. And those are for direct drive Singer Slant-O-Matic series, the 300, 400. Those and they use that motor, different versions later in the 5 and 600s, but for 3 and 400 series, for sure, when you have that motor, you need this part. You also need it for many of the B class, like this one, the Bravo, B like Bravo, and it is made of steel. Let me get my little telescopic magnet there. You see it picked it right up. So what is this thing? It looks like a little, I'm going to call it, this just to help us know what the heck we're looking at here. I need some contrast so you can see it, see the shape. It is shaped like a tent. Let's see, I need something light in color so you guys can see. I want you to see the contrast on this box will give you. You guys see that? Of course you didn't. So leave it to me to complicate that. I'll just set it right here. There we go. But if you look closely, you will see it's shaped like a little tent, right? So if you look at it, it's basically shaped. It has an apex and it slants down two sides. Now, how you put this in really matters. You don't put it in just any old way, okay? Get my flashlight here and I'll show you. You do not put it in like this, because if you do, it's like you're looking at the side of a tent, right? No, no, no. You want to look at the tent like that, okay? Like you're gonna crawl in there. So facing this long side, right? Think of this is like the top of the tent, and then you have a sloping side on either. I think we're going to have to zoom in here a bit for you guys. There we go. So think of it like a tent. You got the top, and then the two sides on sides of the left and right slope down. So I'm going to place this at the top. You want to line it up with your motor like this, and just be approximate. Get it as centered as you can. You know, there is a slight area there that you can work with. Now, do you guys see that? You see how it sits? You should be able to see space under it, like a tent with no back. So this is how it should look, okay? Now, are you ready to put the clams back together? The two halves of this clamshell design back together. Well, sort of, but not yet, because you may discover that when you attempt to put your motor back together, you say, well, let's just put it back together, but it doesn't want to go. Now, why would it do that? You've worked so hard, and you followed the video that this guy's talking to you, this guy being me, and you realize something's holding it, binding it. What could that be? Well, let's look over and notice where I'm putting my thumb. I do not want this thing to go flying. I'm going to hold it there, and I want you guys to see this. this lovely Singer plate. They were really proud of their stuff back then. I mean, look at this thing. It has, these look like rivets, but there's something else. There's some kind of pin, and it swivels on this. This side is installed and not really designed to come out. But look at this one. This area, this side is installed to slide on this pin. So what am I doing? I'm holding up the wedge. I don't want it to go anywhere. No, you're not going to slip out on me. Oh, no, you're not. Now, watch what's happening. This is a very strange thing to illustrate. Notice here, you see the wedge? It's still in place. I'm not letting it slide, and you can just hold it. You don't want to move it. Now, it needs to be centered. I almost moved it up too high. But just put your thumb or your some of you, if you have a thumbnail, you can kind of do that. Okay. Now, why am I doing this? Why am I doing such an awkward position here? The reason is, make sure you behave. Now, over here, okay, you've got to make sure that this is lined up with this other pin. So when you slide the two together, it allows them to click and come together. If you don't, if this piece right here, if you take this and you're not watching, when you're bringing these two halves together, it will actually dovetail. It will, is it subluxate? I'm remembering my geography classes. It will come under here and cause you all kinds of problems, and it's not going to come together. Or if you swing, if you're not paying attention and this plate is over here, or maybe it's up here, you'd probably see it if it was up here. But very often it's down there and you're trying to put it together and it's like, oh, come on, what is the problem? The problem is not the motor, it is the assembler. And I know this because the reason I know to show you this, well, I think you can guess, because when you're learning to do something, you gotta practice. We'll just say that. Okay, so now here we got our clamshell motor. We're trying to get it together. Get out of my way there, assembly. I still got my wedge where I need it, and I've got this lined up. Okay, let's see if it works, everyone. And by the way, you want to sort of press down on your plate, and look at that. Now, don't get cocky, as I think Han Solo said to Luke Skywalker, because your motor is now exactly in the position it needs to be, but it's not secured yet. So you got to kind of pay attention to that. Hold it, because I'm not saying it's going to go flying apart, but it could loosen. And if it loosens, some of your parts could fall. All right, now where are we in this wild world of getting this together? Okay, so now I want you to notice this. This piece is soldered to wiring to the motor, and it acts as kind of a, I want to call it a like a shim. It's like a piece of, it's a beautiful piece of copper actually, and it's part of how the motor applies current, but it also helps to hold what's going to be sitting here soon, and that is going to be your brush and your brush holder. So if I take and I've tried to push on it, notice the shape of this thing. If you just push on it, you might say, well, why isn't it going down? Because I'm going to be very gentle and show you. Do you guys see that? There's a groove there. Turn it. You'll see it. You see this? There's a groove. Like if I put the get out of my way. If I put my little screwdriver here, watch. You see that? Right? There's a recessed groove here, and it's designed to hold this. Now, when you try to put it in there, the groove is angled, sort of at a downward angle to the left, but this piece is curved. And so if you're pushing, you're like, why won't it go? What you need to do is, and you're going to need two hands with this, you take, do not have your motor plugged in. Please don't do that. So you're going to push slightly this way, and then I'm going to take, let's see if I can get myself another tool here that's not as fat as my fingers. All right, so I'm trying to get this to go in, right? Now it's going in just fine. Sometimes what you may find is if it's here and you're trying to push it, it's not going to go in. You may just need to push slightly. You can see, but then it wants to come down. So it is flexible, okay? It's a thin piece of copper, so be kind to it. Now, what have I accomplished? I have accomplished in getting this to be in that groove. Now, if you do that and you say, "Oh, I'm done," well, it's gonna want to plop back out. That's okay. Don't worry. There's nothing wrong with it. So now what am I doing? I'm just going to hold this here, and now I am ready to install my brush. Now, there are different ways you can do this, but first I want to talk to you about the brush and the brush holder. They go in a certain way, and that's the only way they go in. I'm going to have to do a little pan out here. All right, so let's talk about the brush first. And I mentioned this before. If you guys look closely, you will see that the brush, when the brush sits on the commutator, right, it's going to have an arc that's in the same direction as the commutator. If you turn it the other way, so that the arc is perpendicular, it will work, but it'll be fussy. It may spark a lot. It will behave not unlike when you have brand new brushes, which are often flat. So let's just put it back in the way it's used to running, right? It's like when you get a pair of shoes and you finally the shoes in your feet they kind of come together and they learn to sort of fit well. Let's take another one here. I'll take this brush here. Now, let's look and make sure, and you can see, you'll be able to tell in the light. I don't know if you guys can see this, if I can hold it still long enough for you. Okay, so what am I trying to do? I want to make sure that the curve at the end of the brush, which is worn and seated itself to the commutator, is now going to be installed in the same direction, and that's what I'm aiming for. And just so you know, these brushes have a tendency to wiggle. They will, just like a needle, they can wiggle around. So you want to kind of make sure that you have it in the right direction. Okay, so I have it in the right direction. Okay, and look at what I did. I just sort of let it sit. And if you look closely, it's not seated, excuse me. It's just resting right on the commutator. Now, brushes, they're very light. So is that spring. And if you're not paying attention, your brush could actually fall down into the motor. That's not a tragedy, because you'll just take the motor clamshells apart and you'll shake it and it'll come out. It should be fine. Make sure that you can see that brush, because you don't want to start this thing with a brush that's misplaced. That won't be fun. All right, what do we have next, guys? We have the brush holder. Now the brush holder, and I'm not having to hold hard here. I'm just trying to hold this piece here. I can probably let that go for the moment. Now, look at our brush holder. The brush holder looks like a piece of conduit in a way. It's made of brass, and it goes in one direction. So this is our wedge-shaped area, right here, okay? And you're always going to make sure that your brush holder, okay, it has 4 sides, and all of them are solid except one that has a line in it. That line is there because it was originally intended to help you see how worn the brushes were without taking them out. The other thing to note, look at the top of the brush holder. Think of the brush holder as having like a lid. Okay, you see it there? And it's a piece of brass, and it has a slight overlap on the left, only on the left, and that should point to the left. Okay, so don't do it like that. Okay, that overlap should always be pointing to the left. Now, notice what I'm doing here. Be very, just go slow and get this cap. There's room in there for your spring. If you push too hard, what you will discover, whoops, now do you see that? The brush doesn't weigh much. So I want to don't you go moving. I don't want the brush to turn, because it'll twirl on you, and then you won't have the curve matching the commutator. Not the end of the world, but it would be nice if that was not a problem. Now, notice I did not push down on the brush holder. Why is that? Because I want to come back and make sure that this piece, and I may even have to pull back up on the brush holder, because I want this piece to be flush with the edge of the plastic, and right now it's not. So sometimes, depending on how how much tension is on this copper piece. Notice when I lift up, then the copper piece has now gone flush. Do you see that? So you start your brush holder, okay, but you're probably going to have to just very ever so slightly come back up. Look at that brush; it's wanting to twirl on me. Don't you do it? Don't you do it? Okay, so I'm going to very carefully just keep my brush holder. My brush moved. Okay. This will happen to you sometimes. I like it, like I say, if I've been doing this 12 years and it happens to me, if it happens to you, don't feel bad. Just keep trying. Okay, so now I've got my curve back, okay? Because of where this is, sometimes this piece, if it's pushing a little more than others, instead of trying to do what I just showed you, here's your plan B. Or you can even make this plan A if you want. So we're going to come back. This time we're going to get this flush back in its little spot where it belongs. Okay, it should be flush. What do I mean by flush? You see there? It should be like that. Okay. If it's like that or some level of that, you don't have it in correctly. Okay. Now just having the brush in the spring, you've got plenty of room to do that. So let's do that. Now I'm going to put my finger there. Actually, if I can do this, you'll be able to see more. See if I can pull this off. All right, so now we've got that nice and flush, okay? It's right there, just waiting for me. Now what's left? I'm going to come back with my brush holder. Notice the brush holder, again, remember, there's only one side that has that little line or opening, that gap. It should face you, and look at the overlap. The overlap is pointing where? It's pointing to the left. Just like before. Okay, now I'm going to very carefully, you don't have to push hard. In fact, you just want to line it up on the spring and let it fall. Just, it didn't fall far, right? It just went there. Now what are we going to do? Keep something holding this shim. I like to call it a shim. And then I'm going to push down. Okay, now that pressure should keep my brush in place. You're going to feel resistance, but that's okay. Remember, this copper is flexible. So you want to push back and down on the brass piece, and there you go. And that should be, now let go carefully. Don't let it all go at once. And if you look closely, guys, you'll see this piece right here is now it's flush with the plastic, okay? It's not popping out, and it's pushing against the brass, and because of the tension, the brass holder, the brush holder, is now able to stay without flying around. And I've got the curvature on my brush, and I've got this little overhang at the top. It's pointing to the left, and the reason for that is there's a little space. There's a ledge, right? So it helps the brush holder have a stopping place. The brush holder can't keep going, right? You have to stop it, and there it is. What is left to do on this particular one? What I can do, I could go and try to do the other one, but let's finish this side. Okay, I think that might be more straightforward for you all. Now, remember that we have this is our, I call it the wedge cap. Singer had a different name for it. But of course, it's going to fit, it's going to fit right there. So I'm going to take, now what you'll find is sometimes this piece here, and again, this piece is important because it's going to allow the very short bolt that holds the cap on to connect with the long bolt that's going to hold your motor together, okay? And we're going to come over on this side, we're going to come all the way through, and when we do, come here, bolt. Again, inside the motor, once you have it put together, it will look like this, right? And that's how the two bolts connect with this lovely brass connector. Now, sometimes when you take the motor apart, get back a little bit, get a little more space. When you take the motor apart, very often when you start with removing the cap, oftentimes you'll just remove this piece and the brass connector is actually sitting right there. And you might have thought, oh, it's mounted in there. No, it's not. And you'll discover that quickly because it'll plop right out. And it should. It's supposed to. You just don't want it to plop down into your motor. Again, if you drop a spring, a brush, or this, or anything else in your motor, it's very inconvenient. But again, you'll disassemble the motor and you'll shake it out and you very gently, not violently, and then you will put it back together. So what I'm going to do to prevent this clamshell from opening up and creating unnecessary unhappiness for me, I am going to go ahead and get this top section secured. So right now I've got, you can see the little tiny bolt on the wedge cap here. I'm just going to put that down like that. And what I want to do, there are a couple ways you can do this. You can just simply, I would hold the cap over here on the left, and then I'll take my little screwdriver, and I've got that long bolt, and I'm just going to turn it. As long as the bolt should turn smoothly for you. If it gives you trouble when you first turn it, something's not right. But I'm going to keep turning, and eventually it will snug up because it's reaching, there we go, and I stop. As soon as it gets snug, I quit. That means it is now, the long bolt is now, where's that other piece? It is now, it is bolted in to this piece in here. But we're not done. Don't forget, this little bolt has to be fully screwed into the same, what am I saying? The same brass connector. Now, if your bolt just spins, then it's not, there we go, okay. You'll know when the bolt starts to connect to that brass piece. There we go, and it's snug. So we just did 1/2 of the motor. Now it's time to turn things on this side. Now, we're doing the same thing. The good news is, check your motor, right? This is all lined up, right? That looks good. We know that the wedge was good. If the wedge was not, it should not have allowed us to reattach this. Okay, we're going to do this the same. And this over here, we'll take care of this later. This is a fairly straightforward thing, but that comes at the end. All right, let's try this from the top. Again, what am I doing? I'm looking at my brush, and you may need a strong flashlight, but you want to see, you can tell a lot of times by the light which way is which, right? So that's not the right direction. That's perpendicular to my commutator. If I turn it like that, it's hard to see the arch, but if you can turn the brush to the light, you should be able to tell, right? And then I'm going to, again, from the top, keep my brush in its orientation. What am I doing? Let's get this little shim. I call it a shim, but I know Singer had some other name for it. All right, so I've got that, and now I'm going to take my brush. I'm doing this backwards because I'm right-handed. Okay, come on now. I'm going to have to grab you, little brush. Come over here. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I want this to be flush, and it will not block your brush. It's the brush holder that it needs to engage with. Now, look at that. You can really see that, right? You see the contrast of the brush against the black? Do you guys see that? You can see the arch? You should see a curve, a slight curve, and it's on the same plane as your commutator. And there we go. If you look, it's just sitting right there on the commutator. And that's fine. That's where we want it. Now this piece, this little shim may want to wiggle out still. We're not done. You're going to need to hold it with your screwdriver. Now we're going to do the same thing we did before. Again, find the side that has the groove down the center. It's a little opening. And make sure that the little top, at the very top, the overhang is to the left, pointing to the left. And again, you don't push down. You're not trying to put pressure on the spring because that comes later. You just want this, remember it's hollow, You want this to come over the spring with as little disruption or interference to the spring, and then just let it see if it wants to. It should fall right on there. What am I missing here? Now, it didn't fall far, but remember, this shim is there, and so now what are we gonna do? We're gonna hold the shim. You want it flush again. Don't let the shim fly out, or this whole affair does not work. Now, and again, you'll see that the brush wants to twirl a little bit, but now I'm going to take this holder. I'm just going to push in, and it'll give you some resistance, but that's okay. It's supposed to. Now, are we all the way there? No. Why? Because take a look. Do you guys see? I don't know if it will show up for you. Do you see that right there? There is where's my pointer? My little crewing tool. Okay. So we have more space here between the brush and the brush holder, and there's supposed to be some, but look at that. Do you see the little gap there? Yeah, you could if I would turn it toward you. Now, do you see the end of the plastic? You see where I just put the crewing tool and I got it right in there? That means that space should not be there. This piece, this left overhang, it needs to come down a little bit more. So let me push and you'll see it. You'll see where it stops. Watch. Now when you look at it, look at that left overhang. It's now right up against the top of the plastic, okay? That's why this has to go in this way. It's the only way it can go in. Now, just like I did before, if you're not sure, you can hold on to it, but it's basically, it wants to stay there, okay? It's a bit of a dance, right? Hopefully you will be looking at a video when you're trying to do it, or you're trying to learn it, but you won't have a tripod in front of you like I do. I'm not complaining. I've done this enough. I should be able to do it, even with a tripod. Okay, so from the top, let's find our giant long bolt here, okay? And remember, I know the motor's upside down, but remember we're on the other end because the long bolts always go in from the same side, and right now the bolt has nothing to screw into because what's it waiting for? It's waiting for this, right? It's waiting for the brass connector. Now, some people will just put the brass connector in with this bolt. You can. I've seen that happen before where people would just put this in. This is the way I do it. I like to connect the large bolt first with this. You may try it the other way. Again, hold on to stuff. Remember, there's space here. And if anything falls in your motor, spring, brush holder, this big piece of brass, you're going to need to take the motor apart and start over. Sorry, but that's, you can't leave it in there, right? Okay, so I've just sort of pushed this bolt in, and you can see when I push with the screwdriver, you'll see that brass connector, and you have to push against it, obviously, for the bolt to go in the right side of that holder. But if I push like that, and again, I'm just giving it resistance, and I keep turning until the bolt is there it is. It just snugged up, and yep, that's it. It says, okay, we're done. Now, what's left? I'm going to come over here, and you can see that brass piece is now there. The brass piece is no longer going to come out because that bolt is holding it in place. And now I have the little bolt and the wedge, and I'm going to come here. I want my bolt to be, I don't want it to be sticking way in because I need to sort of get my wedge there in place. So the bolt can be loose for the time being. And now I'm going to turn. If it keeps turning and you keep turning and turning and it doesn't, then it hasn't engaged the brass connector. So make sure that it is flush with the motor. It was designed to be. Come here, you. All right. Now, there we go. It's snug. It may surprise you how long it takes to turn these bolts because You know, that brass connector's got quite a few threads. There we go. And when it tells you it's ready to stop, you stop. Bakelite's tough, but it's not that tough. All right. What do we got left, everyone? Are we done? No, we're not quite done, but this is a fairly... Now, some of these motors will have a different setup. It's the same principle. Now, some of them will have a... where are you, little cover? Some of these motors will have what looks like a... almost like a platform and has different connections, but this one did not. Again, it's the same basic motor, but there were changes over the years. Now, what are we trying to accomplish here? You see these two sides. This is where those somewhat shorter bolts are going to go. And we're going to cover this here. Now, because this is the outside, this is what shows, Singer designed it so that you wouldn't see. If you're saying, well, which way does it go? It actually goes so that the ends of the bolts will be facing here, because this is essentially the back of the motor, the back in the sense that you don't see it. So that's when, come here, you. Now, I'm going to help you guys sort of get reoriented here. So this piece, remember, this is the side where our belt pulley is going. This is also the side, the right side, where the terminal is going to be in place for our plug later on. So how are we going to do this? What we're going to do is we're going to take when I showed you the plate, I was inverting myself. So this piece, this will make more sense when I turn it to this side, okay? So you're not used to seeing your light flopping over like that. You're used to seeing your motor, and again, it would, it'll have its pulley here, but you're used to seeing the terminal. This is the beautiful and I think iconic Singer motor terminal. And here's the bracket, okay? The terminal is actually attached to the bracket. So from this side, this is the back, right? So here's the back. Now, you don't put the bolts in this way. You actually, let's see. All right. So the way this is going to look when it is finished, your bolts that are going to hold the base, when I say hold the base, the reason you need these bolts, and I mentioned this, I said I would show you earlier, and now I need to keep my promise. So remember, the bracket, the motor has to attach to the bracket, and it attaches, you can see these two openings on either side, okay? So here's the bracket, and it lines up, these two holes line up with those recesses on the left and the right, like that. Now your light is going to basically be looking like that. Don't worry about your light, because your light is exactly where it needs to go. It's going to be mounting onto the back of the machine body, but you can see as it's coming out, this is how it was designed. So I'm not worried about my light, but I want to make sure I don't get these pieces flopping around. Now, another angle to show you guys. So let's start from this side. So I don't show you in the wrong order. Okay. So you've got your bracket, the back of the motor. Okay. Line up the holes here. Okay, and it'll sort of seat itself to a degree. And again, your bracket is on the right because this is the back. This is going to face the back of your machine. While holding this, just hold the bracket like I just showed you. Now, this plate that I showed you, this is where this plate basically covers this little area where these wires are passing. Those holes are going to line up with the recesses, just like the bracket did on the back, okay? So you're going to do that. Now, before you go to put your bolts in, take a look. You want your this basically L-shaped piece. You want it to be like this, okay? Okay, so when you look at that, when these two things come together, your bracket is going to overlay this little L-shaped piece of steel. Okay, you don't want it like that. Okay, if you take this piece right here, and if you put it on top of the bracket, you've got an opening. Singer did not plan for you to do that. The details of which I'm not sure, but I do know that that's not how it goes. So make sure that this piece dovetails under the bracket, okay? So that when you're underneath, it looks like that. And from the side, you can see it again. I've got here's the L-shaped piece of steel, and you'll notice it's going to slide right under the bracket. So the bracket sort of caps over this piece, if that makes sense. Okay? Now, while you're holding all that together, now you get to put the last bolts in. So here we go. And your bolts are going to, you say, well, which way did the bolts go? You should see the metal end of the bolt. These are straight head, and they're going to go in just like that. Come here, bolt. Okay? Now, you got to hold this together because, and if you have small hands, you may want to get someone to help you. Now, before you start turning with the screwdriver, you can then, well, of course your bolts may not want to behave, but you may be able to kind of get a clue as to whether you're lined up or not. Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit. Not that much. Okay, so I've shown you, you've got the bracket that's over, and you've got the little L-shaped piece here. It's underneath the bracket. The bracket is sort of, on top of it. Now, when you go to put that first bolt in, look here, you actually get a little window. You can see the hole that it's going toward. Do you guys see that? I don't know if that's going to pick up for you or not. Let me pull this bolt out of the way. You guys see that? You can see, get my flashlight a little closer. You should be able to see, and it's silver colored, the hole on the other side. Okay, so what I'm doing, I want to, if I can hold that light still for, there we go. So ahead of the bolt is the hole of the bracket on the other side. And I can't totally control it, but what I'm going to do is hold it in this position, and I'm going to turn my bolts, and now that one's taking, it's already threading. If you keep turning and it doesn't thread, then just pull back, okay, and try it again, because while you're trying to do this, if you're not holding the bracket will kind of wiggle around, and you're not going to hurt it as long as you have this piece, again, it's going underneath the level of this bracket. So what I like to do is just try to get one of the bolts in. I don't have to snug it all the way down, but I need to know it's connecting. Okay. Now I have one more to do. Now look, do you see the bolt is just sort of flopping around here? Now let's, and because the bracket is still moving, it's moving a little bit. And you can see, obviously, this is not right because the bolt shouldn't be way out here. So I'm going to pull back. Now, see if you guys can see. Get my bolt out of there. This might actually be a little easier to notice. There we go. Okay. If you look straight down, right, you see an ocean of black, but there's a little, like a silver opening. I'm going to take my bolt, okay, and then I'm going to feed the bolt, make sure the bolt's lined up. I'm going to feed the bolt down, and I want it basically to aim it toward the threaded end of the bracket. Because it's working the same way as the other side did. But again, being able to see it can kind of let you eyeball a little bit. I'm just starting it with my fingers, and now I'm going to see. We're about to find out. No, I didn't. I didn't get it in there. But again, you have some wiggling around room. Wiggling around room. What a technical term, huh? Okay, so I'm going to there's quite a lot of play in this bolt. That's why you can sit there and turn and it may not do anything because you're trying to get it to thread. That's why I actually found that I just did it. Actually, it was easier for me to do it with my thumb and index finger. And now, once I get it started, then the screwdriver is a lot more useful. Okay, what have we accomplished? We have reassembled this B-class motor after having relubricated both bushings of the drive shaft. And the whole theory was, I wonder if it's making this sound, because when I inspected it, my gosh, it was dry. I mean, it was dry. Now, there is one last thing to do, which of course is I can attach the pulley. It has a tiny little long barrel-shaped bolt that is going to attach with, that's going to go in the hole of this end of the drive shaft. Now, I have, if you look in there, in spite of how many times I put this clamshell back together, I can tell I've got, you see a little shimmer there, there's that grease, so that it should have plenty of grease. The grease doesn't really just, disappear off the bushing just because I'm having to put this back together time and again. So you don't have to worry about, oh, maybe I have to grease it again. No. So let's go ahead and we'll go in for a penny, in for a pound, folks. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put this on. Now, this is your pulley, and there's a hole in the pulley. And I'm just going to keep turning till I find it. There it is, okay? This should make a lot of sense. That hole in the pulley needs to line up with the hole in the drive shaft because that's where our bolt is going to go, okay? Now, you kind of look at it and it's like, oh, okay, well, where did it go? The bolt, the drive shaft will try to turn on you. So when you put it on, when you put the pulley on, try not to turn it like this, because you'll end up turning the drive shaft, and then your holes won't line up, and you'll be less happy. Okay, now I'm keeping it lined up, and whoops, there it is. Okay, now this is sort of a trick of the light. I don't know if it's going to show up on the cam here, but now what am I going to do with this? I don't know if that I even oil this. This is not a normal place to oil something. You don't take this apart to oil it just when you're oiling your machine. But this is a restorer's thing. I like to put just one drop of sewing machine oil on the very tip of the bolt. Make sure which side is which. Yeah. So you want to make sure that you put the straight head for the screwdriver. Make sure it's facing up, because this thing is so narrow. I mean, you might not even see it. You may even have to use a magnifying glass. I'm nearsighted, so I'm lucky in that way. All right, I need a very small screwdriver for this. Now, this is believe it or not, this is an area where details always matter, but here they really do. This bolt that's going to hold your pulley to the drive shaft does not have a head to it, right? It's designed to be countersunk, because when your belt is here, you don't want your belt rubbing on this bolt, because it'll cause it to wear out. So I'm starting with what I think is narrow enough. Here's the thing. If you take a screwdriver, like this one looks small, but it's too wide. So when I go to tighten this bolt, once I get to the level of the inner pulley, I could potentially scratch it and damage it, because it's only going to go down so far. So we got to have a screwdriver tip that is no wider than the hole for this screw. And be patient, take your time. If for some reason, and again, my fingers are too large to start it, you might have better luck. If it pops off, don't despair, just, take it out and try again. And as is generally true with any kind of bolt when you're trying to thread it, once you get it turning and it's started, if it turns for you, it should turn fairly easily without resisting. If it resists you, then you're starting to cross thread it, and that means you need to stop and maybe reset it. Take it out and reset it. Right now it's just turning a little weird, and I'm going to try it. Now this is the one that I have these screwdriver bits, and I'm going to see. There we go. Don't you go anywhere there. Keep in mind that the bolt that holds this pulley on, it may not have been. Now it's starting to turn. It finally got happy enough to turn. Now I can see if this screwdriver, this little silver one, is actually, some of you have this if you have a vintage Singer. This is this screwdriver was originally designed for adjusting the tension on bobbin cases. So it's really tiny. I think it's made of aluminum. So the slot for the head of this bolt is not very deep. So you really don't want to strip it because it wouldn't take much, even though it's a steel screw. And you all know that I've geeked out many times on telling you how even the quality of the steel of Singer's screws was incredible, as was that of all of the legacy companies back in that time. But okay, so this is continuing to turn, and even if I'll finish it with this one because I know this one, no, this one is the narrowest one I have. So I'm going to keep turning. Until it's basically snug and it's, oops. And just like every other screw, it's when it snugs up and stops, you can stop. This is something that, like the bolt that holds the bracket to the body, this is something that is, I tighten them just slightly more there, and I stop. Because again, your belt's pulling on it, but you don't want to over tighten it, because your pulley is actually Bakelite, but even if it was steel, you want to be able to get off in the future. Okay, everyone. Whew, well, there you go. Had to turn on the electric light for this exercise. Now, once you've done this before, if you may say, I don't want to do this all the time. Once this is done, what we actually did was not all that I don't think it's so much difficult to understand as it is somewhat delicate to the ergonomics of holding on to everything, right? Some people with smaller hands, you might actually have an easier shot at it. But again, the wires here are in great shape. I don't see anything dry rotted or crumbling. My soldering points were great. So in the next video, I am going to plug in this motor. I don't need a belt, and I don't even need it on the machine because I have my foot pedal, and I'm going to listen to it. And let's see if it listens. If it listens, oh my. Let's see if the motor has a better sound. If it does, my theory was correct. But I make no assumptions, because if it's still struggling, or if it's making a groaning sound that just doesn't sound correct to me, then my theory, the lubrication will help. It'll actually help because the motor won't have to work as hard. Who knows? We'll find out in the next video, everyone. I appreciate all of you. You have incredible patience watching me talk about something that is, for many folks, it's obscure. So again, I want to make sure I've checked everything, and we'll do that before we plug it in. So stay tuned. You know what? We're about to find out if all of my effort was a waste or not. And let me know if you've ever attempted to disassemble a B-class Singer motor. I have before. They were designed to be serviced by Singer technicians, and because they are so incredible, again, you just want to make sure, do I understand? Is there something going on with it that it needs tending to? Thank you all so much for watching me do this, and thank you all for tuning in. We've had so many, there's over 5 million views on this channel, and with the relaunch, we now have Buy Me a Coffee. For those of you who find any of this interesting, if anything, on this channel, please consider donating. You can simply click on Buy Me a Coffee. It takes you right to my Buy Me a Coffee page. You'll see the Singer 301 there, and consider donating and supporting my efforts as I work to expand this channel so we can find more things to learn how to fix together. I appreciate all of you. Take care, and we'll see you next time.